It's been a week since the DLC launched and people are still struggling. I was talking shit in my last video about people complaining about difficulty, but yeah, some people are like really having a bad time, which is unfortunate since the game is so good. So here's 5 early game tips to help you in Shadow of the Erdtree if you're struggling. Yeah, here's all the things that I wish I knew before getting into it. First off, survivability. 40 Vigor was more than enough health to beat the base game, but this is not the case for DLC. If your Vigor is under 50, you're gonna have a bad time. Prioritize Vigor instead of your damage dealing stats, because putting out crazy damage is irrelevant when you die in like 2 hits. There was a noticeable difference when my Vigor was at like 45 up from 40, and now it's at 50. I can take like 4 to 6 hits before dying now, and it's a lot less frustrating. Still frustrating, but you know, just not as bad. Also work on your endurance, because if it's short like mine, I think mine's in like the 30s. Yeah, work on upgrading that too, because you're going to be doing a lot of dodge rolling. Number 2, it's been said so many times, I'm sure you've heard it, but I'll say it again. Go find the Erdtree blessings or fragments, whatever they're called. These help with damage negation from enemies in the DLC and help boost your damage. So if you're running through the DLC and not exploring, you'll miss them, and then you'll wonder why every attack from an enemy feels like you got hit by a fucking freight train. It's because you haven't collected these fragments. The difference in damage I was taking when my fragment level was at like 1 versus 7, where it's at right now, it's very noticeable. Like just look at me just eating these attacks and walking away. These fragments can be found at Crosses of Mikola, or sometimes they can drop if you defeat bosses. So, just go and explore. Don't try to speedrun the bosses in DLC. I saw people tweeting that they fought bosses for like 10 hours and died over 200 times. And you don't need to do that, alright? I've never fought a boss longer than like 2 hours in my entire playthrough of this game. I'm not fighting anything for 10 hours. That's fucking insane. Y'all are crazy. Listen, just go level up and come back. I think a lot of people have the mindset of, I'm an elden lord, I beat the game, I should be able to bully these new bosses. And in return, they're kind of just like,
no, you ain't!
So yeah, treat the DLC, like when you just got the game, you got into Limgrave for the first time, and you met the Tree Sentinel. Boss fights are supposed to be challenging, but not insanely hard that you're stuck for hours, because, you're doing no damage or you're dying too fast. If that's the case, then you're not ready for that boss fight. And number 3 is to adapt. Again, people come into this DLC with the mindset they have after beating the main game. They have their one build, they took it through the entire game, and in the DLC you're going to need to learn to tweak your build and adapt to who you're fighting. I feel like the game has been trying to help us, but we've kind of been so stubborn and eager to beat bosses that we're not seeing it. After exploring the map, I've noticed like 3 times now, I've found talismans that are relevant to the enemies I'm fighting in that area. I found one for fire, one for physical damage negation, and after exploring under the castle where R'hllana is, all the enemies around this area do magic spells and incantations, kind of like in the academy in the base game. And guess what? I found a talisman that does magic negation. Also, the bosses in the DLC are far more mobile than in the base game. They're very fast and they move around a lot, even the dragons. So your window to attack and even to heal is pretty small. They will rush you as soon as you get into that boss arena. So try different weapons depending on who you're fighting. I've been switching my great sword to stagger smaller bosses, but the bosses that this doesn't work on, and I'm swinging the sword just a bit too slow or I'm getting hit too much, I'll just switch to my katana or the light great sword so I can just attack, get in and get out. There's a ton of smithing stones dropping in the DLC, and again, that's the game helping you because there's so many different weapons to try out now, so you have a ton of smithing stones to upgrade them and see how you do with them. They're pretty fun. And along with these smithing stones, the rune fragments are dropping a lot too, so instead of farming areas, just use these because they're everywhere, and it should help with leveling up pretty fast. Because the amount they give you now is a lot more than in the base game, so I'll beat a boss which will give me like 120k runes, and then just use one of these fragments that'll give me 80k, and then I can go and level up. So again, yeah, just adapt, tweak your loadout a bit, change your talismans to match the damage type of whatever boss you're fighting. It will help with tanking damage. This, along with figuring out which weapon works better against who you're fighting. You don't have to do this. If you want to stick to your one build the way it is throughout the entire DLC, that's fine, but it will definitely be a bit harder. Number 4 is to go to system and turn on this new recent tab setting. It'll come in handy because you pick up a lot of stuff in DLC. So if you missed anything, it'll be here and it has a little exclamation mark. So you just go to your inventory and you can see everything that you got recently. I'm not sure why it's a setting and not just implemented, but yeah, it's off by default, so you have to go in settings and turn it on. And the last tip is to use any buffs that you can. I stack these with the talismans, whether it's incantations or spells or Ashes of War. I use the physical damage negation incantation the most and pair that with the physical damage talisman to help me tank a lot of damage. But you know, stuff like throwing knives to inflict certain status on enemies. There's also the new perfume weapons, incantation buffs for your weapons. I'm using the lightning and poison buff on my greatsword. But yeah, just use anything you can to get the advantage in a fight where possible, because you will need it. There's a lot of talk online now more than ever on what weapons or summons are considered cheating. Yeah, just ignore these fucking people. Just use whatever you want to progress any way you can, since this DLC is so hard. Like I said, since bosses are really mobile now and move around to all over the damn place, I've been using Bloodhound Step a lot. Comes in clutch for getting away from attacks and putting some distance between me and bosses that are taking out chunks of my health. Since you go invisible and teleport, I'll just use this to avoid like really big area attacks altogether. But yeah, those are 5 tips to help you with the early game DLC and the difficulty if you're struggling, so hopefully it's to help somebody. But yeah, that's all I got for this video. I don't do Elden Ring guides, this was just like a one-off, but I do video essays and talk about whatever game I'm currently playing at the moment. So subscribe for that if that's what you want to see. I already have an Elden Ring video essay out. If that's your thing, check it out at the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.